Hey guys, Poro here with my final 2025 Summer Split Power Rankings video, and this one will be for the LTA South. This video is going to be a little bit odd because LTA South went through a ton of roster changes the same way that the LPL did, but unlike the LPL, I don't know who like half of these roster changes are. Like, I'm pretty familiar with the players in the LTA South who were already there, but I'm assuming most of these players came from either like the academy system, or I know that there are still teams kind of floating around in regional Brazilian leagues and Latin American leagues and whatnot. But yeah, I can't say that I know most of these players, so a lot of these quote unquote rankings that I'll be doing are probably not legit at all. So for example, these are the changes that we have: blue locked in, green probably. I checked right before I started this recording and this is where we're at, so we probably know all 40 of the players who are playing, but there's a chance that some of these green ones might change last minute, who knows. Anyways, looking at all of these italicized players, I have never heard of or seen a game from Curdy, Yampy, Leza, Zoen, House, Toplop, Jewel, Kaze, or Rebello. So all of those changes that were made, I have no idea who these players are. So yeah, this is gonna be a rough one. So I mean, I guess the first thing I'll say overall is that assuming these players are actually from some kind of academy system or a tier 2 scene, I'm a little bit surprised that none of these teams bothered to try to pick up Marvin or Giggs, because you would think that, or also like who was Pain Academy's mid laner? Yeah, this guy, however this name is pronounced. I'm kind of surprised that nobody tried to get any of the people from that Pain Academy roster. Like, I know that they played on, well, everybody except for that mid laner played on the W7M roster, and then that roster kind of sucked. But at the same time, could you not just blame that on the org itself having 10 billion internal issues and controversies surrounding them? Like, are Curdy and Zoen definitely that much more of a known better quantity than Hidan, or is Toplop better than Giggs? Like, I would imagine, based on the fact that the Pain Academy team was so dominant, that probably not. But anyways, I'm sure that anybody who is familiar with the LTA South academy scene more than me will fill me in the comments on how all of these players are. I don't know. I even debated just not making this video, because what am I supposed to do when I genuinely just have never seen most of these players? It is what it is. The other videos that I did, there was structure. Like, I talked about each of the individual roster changes one at a time, and then I talked about all of the teams one at a time and ranked them as I went, but I can't really do that here because what am I supposed to say about W7M? Like, yeah, Fu and Marvin didn't look that great. Pro Delta is like a pickup that exists for sure, but it's like, I have no idea who their top jungle is. Like, I can't make a judgment call on if they're 6th or 7th or 8th or anything. I guess I'll talk about the roster changes that I do know about. So, Loud decided to pick up Griffin, and I know that a lot of people are super excited about this one, but I don't actually think Griffin is going to be insane right away, and I'm really hoping that Loud don't do the thing where they just play Griffin for a few weeks and then it doesn't work, and then they're like, oh, okay, we're going to drop you now because it's not working. Because Griffin is pretty young and doesn't have any tier 1 experience. He was in the T1 Academy system. So I know that usually when you say Academy, you think tier 2, but T1 Academy is actually tier 3. Their tier 2 team is T1 Challengers, and Griffin was on T1 Academy. So that said, T1 Academy had 2 different junglers that they rotated in between, and of the 2, they decided to go with the other one, but I thought that Griffin was just like objectively better when they played. So I don't really get why they decided to play the other one instead of Griffin, but it is what it is. I think that Griffin looked really good in the Academy system for the small amount of games that he got, but obviously we don't know how that translates because we know that there are players from the Challengers system in LCK who move to other regions and then don't look so hot. So I don't think that Griffin is going to come out of the gates swinging. I don't think he's going to be a top half jungler right away. I would imagine that Tadu, Jose, Karaoke, and Decimus will probably be better than him out of the gate. Maybe Scary could be better, but for me, Griffin is more of a project. Like, you want to sign Griffin so that way you can work on him over time as the rest of your players retire or leave. Like, we know that Tenon's left, Robo and Redbird are probably on their way out in a couple of splits or a couple of years or something like that. I wouldn't imagine Rout's gonna stick around too much longer either, as he's not young. So I would like to see Loud take Griffin as kind of a player that you maybe have one rough split with, but then you build around him for the future depending on how he does. That would be what I would say on that front. Other roster changes that could be interesting. Red played Doom for like 6 games or something like that last split. Like, I have it italicized, but technically he's not new. He was already on the team and played a bit. I didn't think he was all that impressive when he did play, but I don't mind the fact that they're moving away from Aegis and Grefthar. It kind of felt like those two players had settled in, didn't really seem to want to improve anymore, so guess they're out. Another one, VKS, just straight up replacing Kisei with Miru. I don't dislike this. I think that Miru is just a better player than Kisei right now, so like, sure, we'll take it. The rest of these roster changes, no clue. So this video is probably only going to be like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something. Let's just start out with what I do know. So the 2 teams that are keeping their rosters are the 2 teams who I think are probably going to be the best 2 in this region, those being Furia and Pain. I'm going to leave Furia above Pain, even though Pain did beat Furia in upper bracket finals and then lost to them in grand finals. I think that Furia showed enough internationally for me that I'm down to leave them in first. I like their trajectory a lot. I don't think that their win was a fluke, and I think that they're the type of team who's just going to keep getting better. Like, when I look at the 5 players that Furia has, I don't see a single player on that roster who has topped out in skill. I think that all of them have more room to grow. Whereas I look at Pain, and I don't necessarily think that Weiser, Karaoke, Teton, or maybe even Curry are getting any better. Roamer's still a little bit of an unknown quantity for me. Based on what I saw from him in playoffs, I thought he was pretty decent, but yeah, I would imagine that Pain will be roughly the same strength as they were, and then Furia will get better. So I'm leaving Furia in 1, Pain in 2. I guess I can fill up the space a little bit by talking about how Furia did look internationally. So at MSI, Toots was a huge surprise for me. Toots domestically was a little bit of a coin flipper, in my opinion. Like, he would have some really good games, but then he would also have some disaster games where he would just accomplish absolutely nothing. Internationally, it wasn't like that at all. I felt like even in Furia's losses, Toots was playing really well for the most part, or at the very least was the only player on his team who was able to have resources to actually maybe win. I know that people will clown on him for kind of throwing the Azir game, but the fact that he was in the position on Azir to carry the game in the first place definitely speaks volumes when the rest of his team was falling behind. Gigo had a really good series against G2, but he had a very underwhelming series against Gam. I think that he came out kind of looking how I thought he was going to look. Mechanically impressive. Honestly, the entire team came out looking pretty mechanically impressive. I was pleasantly surprised with how Jojo looked. I knew heading in that Jojo had a pretty solid champion pool, but I wasn't actually expecting it to hold up, but it really did. He played multiple styles, and they all felt like they were working pretty well. I think that Tadu had a great international debut. I have a lot of hopes for how he'll do. The one player who I was slightly disappointed was IU. I was hyping up IU a lot, and I don't take any of it back, and I'm still going to continue hyping him up, but he was definitely for sure the worst player on the team, at MSI at least. I don't think he was actually that bad. I think he did get to show off some of the stuff that he had. He had some nice mechanical moments, he had some really clean games, he showed that he had a lot of flexibility with his champion pool and how he wants to play out lanes with Jojo, but you could definitely tell that he wasn't a super strong force for the team or anything. I wouldn't look into it too much. I still think all 5 of these players can improve and grow. Then you have Pain, which at this point, like I was mentioning, I think is a little bit of a known quantity. I think that Teton is still going to be up there as one of, if not the best, bot laner in this region. I think same thing for Weiser and Karaoke. They're both probably going to be up there as some of the best in their roles, but yeah, I don't know, I just don't think they're going to get much better. Then we have to think about who I'm going to put in third. You know what? Maybe I could start out with a little bit of a hot take. I think that maybe VKS could be third. Their team definitely had issues last split for sure, but I think that Decimus looked pretty good. I think that Morpheus was pretty good, and the roster change that they did make, where they got rid of Kisei and they're bringing in Miru, I like this change too. Like, that's an upgrade to me. So looking at a lot of these rosters, I'm not convinced that some of these changes will stick immediately. Like, I think if you were gonna try to order the other teams in terms of who you think might do okay, you would probably do something like Easterus would be up there, Loud would be up there. Yeah, I would say that like you're looking at these three teams next. Vivo Keat Stars, Easterus, and Loud. I think that kind of across the board, most of the teams either side graded or downgraded, to be honest. So yeah, even though VKS didn't look great in regular season or playoffs, I'm down to just say that they'll be third. Easterus, again, this is a bit of an unknown quantity for me. I'm not familiar with either of these players. I still don't think Snacker and Ackerman are a crazy bot lane for this region, especially not Snacker. I've never been super impressed with Snacker. Jose will still be good, but yeah, I don't know. And then my biggest issue with Loud is that I mean, one, I already kind of said my piece on Griffin. I don't think he's going to come out of the gate swinging. I think he'll be a project that will take time. I have no idea about this Jewel person. And then the other thing about Loud is that I really don't think that Redbird is a good enough player to be playing on a top level team. He's never really, like, for the past couple of splits, I always thought he was super underwhelming and wasn't at the level that he needs to be to ever compete internationally or compete against even some of the other supports in this league. So for me, it's mostly that for Loud, is that Redbird's holding this team back, and then I don't think Griffin will be good right away. I also maybe this is just like, again, I don't know anything about the like four mid laners, new mid laners that I've never seen play before, but I can't imagine that any of them are going to be better than Tenones out of the gate. Like, am I crazy for saying that? I feel like Tenones is probably going to be better than most, if not all, of the Academy mid laners. I actually don't even know if all these mid laners are from Academy. I like checked them all briefly, but I can't remember which ones are Academy and which ones are imports or whatever, if any. Then we got to sort out this mess down here. You know what the take is? I'm going to put W7M dead last, purely because I think this org is just so screwed up that they'll probably just ruin something internally, regardless of how good their new players are. And then, I don't know, what do I think about these two teams? I'll put Red in 6th, why not? I don't know anything about Kaze, Rebello, Howls, or Toplop, but if I look at the players that I do know, that being FNB, Doom, Frosty, Zothface, Scary, Sayo, FNB is probably who I think would be the best player out of those 6, and I don't think Frosty's bad by any means, so sure, why not? We'll go with Red in 6th. Again, this video is super messy because I just straight up don't know all of these players. It is what it is. That said, one thing that I do know about is the playoffs format. So I have good news for any LTA South fans, and that is that you guys are guaranteed at least one team at Worlds. So the way that the format works is that both the LTA North and the LTA South will play their individual regional playoffs, and then the top 3 teams from the North and the South will join together for a full playoffs with those 6 teams. And then that bracket is 1 seed versus 1 seed, 2 seed versus, I think it's 1 seed versus 1 seed, and then 2 versus 3 and 3 versus 2. And then only the 1 seeds get double elimination. So the 2s and the 3s don't get double elimination. So whoever wins that first series is automatically knocked out. And then once 2 teams are dropped off that way, the winners of that match will play against each other. And then the winner of that match will face the loser of the 1 seeds, and then those are your 3 teams that are remaining. So what that means is that both the 1 seed from LTA North and the 1 seed from LTA South are guaranteed at minimum 3rd seed in that joint playoffs, which means that they'll get the 3rd seed to Worlds. So even if, let's say Furia wins LTA South, and then they go to the joint playoffs and then lose every game, they will still get 3rd and they'll still get a world slot. So people who were worried about LTA South not getting a spot, you're definitely guaranteed one. There's going to be a lot of LTA North people who are going to have massive beef with your teams because of that. So for your sakes, I'm hoping that maybe you guys can win at least 1 series against them. Like, maybe there's a world where, let's say, Furia play up against FlyQuest, and then Furia loses, and so they drop down. And then Cloud9 and Team Liquid are the LTA North 2 and 3, and then they play against, let's just say, Pain and VKS. And then let's say Cloud9 and TL beat both of those teams, and then they would play against each other, and then maybe TL randomly upsets Cloud9 for no reason, and then Furia can play against TL, and then maybe Furia can win that. I think that if Furia can manage to beat the 2 seed from the LTA North, that'd be nice. Who knows, maybe it's possible. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have for this one. It's the shortest one by far, but you guys can just blame all of the random roster changes that happened with players who I've never heard of. Okay, that is all 6 regions done. I'll see you all on Saturday morning for the LCP co-streaming. Bye.